My name is Ethan Cole, and for most of my 20s, I thought I had it all figured out: a steady job in Austin, a small but decent condo I'd worked my ass off to buy, and a woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Her name was Natalie Harper. When I first met her, she was wearing a faded University of Texas sweatshirt and balancing a paper cup of coffee in one hand and a stack of marketing textbooks in the other. She smiled at me like she'd known me her whole life. I should have known right then some smiles hide more than they show. We'd been together for 5 years by the time everything started to unravel, though looking back, the cracks had been there for a while. They were just easier to ignore when you wanted to believe. That's what I was doing, pretending everything was fine because the alternative felt too humiliating. I wanted to believe I mattered to her, that I was enough. It started the week after Thanksgiving. We'd hosted dinner at my place, our place as she liked to call it, even though her name wasn't on the mortgage. She'd insisted on doing everything herself: the table settings, the menu, the playlist she'd spent hours curating so everything would feel perfect. She'd looked beautiful that night, wearing a soft green dress that made her eyes look almost translucent. But when the last guest left and the plates were stacked in the sink, something shifted in her. She got quiet, preoccupied. I caught her staring at her phone screen more times than I could count, her thumb hovering as though she couldn't decide whether to send a message or erase it. At first, I told myself she was just exhausted. Hosting always stressed her out more than she'd admit. But a small voice in the back of my mind kept whispering that something was off. Natalie was good at pretending. She always had been. When her father got sick the year before, she kept up that same brittle cheerfulness until the night she finally collapsed in tears on the bathroom floor. So I tried to let it go, to chalk it up to stress and the upcoming holidays. But the uneasy feeling stayed lodged behind my ribs. A couple days later, I noticed the first real sign that things weren't what they seemed. She'd left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear to God I wasn't. But the screen lit up with a notification. It was just one line, but it felt like a shard of glass pressing into my chest. Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. No name, just a phone number I didn't recognize. I stood there frozen, listening to the shower running down the hall, my hands shaking so hard I almost knocked the laptop off the counter. I closed it. I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't want to know. My heart was already hammering so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. Part of me wanted to confront her right then, drip still in her hair, towel wrapped around her body, so she couldn't hide behind any excuses. Another part of me, a bigger part, wanted to pretend I hadn't seen anything. That maybe it was some misunderstanding. That maybe if I ignored it, it would go away. I set the laptop back exactly the way she'd left it. When she came out of the bathroom, hair damp and skin pink from the heat, she gave me that same smile, the one that made me feel safe. I tried to smile back, but it felt like my face might crack. "You okay?" she asked, tucking her hair behind her ear. "You look pale." "Just tired," I lied. "Long day." She walked over and pressed a kiss to my cheek. "Go lie down. I'll finish up in here." I nodded and walked to the bedroom, my legs unsteady. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles above me, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. But no matter how many times I replayed that single line in my mind, there was no innocent explanation. She'd slept with someone. Someone who wasn't me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured her in someone else's arms. The image was so vivid it made my stomach churn. When I finally drifted off just before dawn, I woke to the sound of her humming in the kitchen, as though nothing had changed. Maybe for her, nothing had. That day at work, I couldn't focus. My clients must have thought I'd lost my mind. I kept forgetting what they'd told me mid-sentence. My boss, Greg, pulled me aside and asked if everything was all right at home. I almost told him the truth. But instead, I said I was just tired. That word again, tired. It felt safer than betrayed. When I came home, Natalie was sitting cross-legged on the couch with her laptop propped on a pillow. She looked up and smiled, but this time it felt practiced. Like she was waiting for me to say something she could deny. "Hey," she said. "You're home early." "Yeah," I replied, setting down my keys. Slow day. We stared at each other for a moment. There was something hanging between us, something heavy and electric. But neither of us acknowledged it. She turned her gaze back to her screen, and I went into the bedroom to change. My hands shook as I unbuttoned my shirt. The worst part was I still loved her. Even as my mind screamed that she'd betrayed me, some part of me hoped there was a way this could still be saved. Over the next few days, I tried to convince myself it had been a fluke, that maybe it was some spam text or a prank. But her behavior kept confirming what my gut already knew. She grew more distant, spending more time, working late. Her phone was never out of her reach. When she thought I wasn't looking, her face would flicker. Guilt or sadness, I couldn't tell which. One night, I came home and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, her suitcase half-packed. My chest went cold. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sounding hollow. She looked up at me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Ethan, I need some time to think." "To think about what?" My voice cracked. "About him?" She didn't deny it. She just closed her eyes, and a single tear slid down her cheek. That was when I knew for sure, knew that whatever we'd built was already gone. The foundation had been cracked long before I noticed the fissures. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I need space." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then go." I thought it would hurt less if I said it first. But as she zipped up the suitcase and walked past me, the ache was so deep it felt like it was splitting me in two. She didn't look back when she left. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. That night, I sat on the floor with my back against the front door, trying to remember when things had started to fall apart. Maybe it had always been coming. Maybe I'd been too blind or too hopeful to see it. In the weeks that followed, she didn't come back. She didn't call. I found out from a mutual friend that she'd moved in with a guy, the same one who'd sent the text. His name was Tyler, apparently. Younger than me, richer, or so she thought. And as humiliating as it was, I still missed her. I missed the way she'd curl up beside me on the couch, the way she'd hum when she cooked, the way she'd kiss me goodnight. But I also knew I couldn't be the man who waited around to be chosen. And so I stopped waiting. I tried to convince myself that I was imagining things, that maybe the late-night phone calls and the sudden need to work overtime were just coincidences. But it only took a few days for the threads of denial to unravel. The first clue was so small it might have slipped past me any other time. One evening, she came home with her hair damp, smelling faintly of cologne I didn't recognize. She said she'd been at the gym, but there was no gym bag, no towel, and she never used that particular scent. I told myself it was nothing, that I was overanalyzing because I'd been feeling insecure. But the following night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. It buzzed with a message preview. "Same time tomorrow." My throat tightened as I stared at the screen. My name wasn't anywhere in the thread, only a saved contact marked with a single letter, J. I scrolled up just far enough to catch fragments of the conversation. Phrases that didn't belong to the life we'd built together. "I can't keep lying to him. I think he suspects. Don't worry, he's too naive to do anything." I set the phone back exactly how she'd left it. My hands were trembling. In that moment, the house around me seemed unfamiliar, like I was trespassing in someone else's life. Every framed photo on the wall mocked me. Every promise we'd made echoed in my head like a bad joke. Over the next few days, I began collecting these little inconsistencies the way a detective gathers evidence. Her stories never quite lined up. If she said she'd been working late, her car mileage didn't add up. If she claimed to be with a friend, she came home with no explanation about what they'd talked about. I'd always trusted her without question. That blind faith had once felt noble. Now it felt pathetic. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd replay her excuses over and over, analyzing every detail, every hesitation in her voice. I started to notice things that seemed obvious in hindsight, how she flinched when I kissed her, her laughter sounded hollow when we were alone, how quickly she pulled away when I tried to touch her. It wasn't just the cheating that made my stomach twist. It was the knowledge that she thought I was too stupid to see it. One evening, when she was in the shower again, I gathered the courage to look through her purse. My heart hammered so loudly, I thought she might hear it through the running water. At the bottom, beneath her wallet, I found a folded receipt for a hotel across town, dated the same night she said she'd been working late. I held it in my palm, feeling like it weighed more than the entire room. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong. "Everything okay?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for any sign that I discovered the truth. I swallowed hard, feeling the receipt burn against my skin. "Yeah," I lied, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "Everything's fine." But everything was not fine. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me. My thoughts circled like vultures around a single question. How long had she been preparing to make this my fault? Because, deep down, I knew she wasn't going to confess. She wasn't going to apologize. She was going to twist this into something that made her the victim and me the villain. In the morning, she was extra affectionate, as if she sensed that her story was slipping. She cooked breakfast, kissed my cheek, and asked if I needed anything before she left for work. I watched her walk out the door, her lies trailing behind her like perfume. The suspense was unbearable. I had evidence. I had motive. And now I had resolve. She thought I was too naive to see the truth. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I had spent weeks trying to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was some explanation I hadn't considered, some hidden angle that would make it all feel less like betrayal and more like a misunderstanding. But when the truth finally came crashing into my life, there was nothing ambiguous about it. It was as raw and undeniable as the cold wind that rattled my apartment windows the night I found out. I still remember that evening in excruciating detail. I'd gotten home late from work, exhausted, my mind hazy with fatigue. As I dropped my bag by the door, I noticed that the answering machine was blinking with a single new message. I hesitated. Something about the blinking red light made my stomach clench. But I pressed play anyway. Her voice poured into the room like poison. "Hey. Look, I know you probably hate me. But I don't know how this all fell apart. You've got it all wrong." The recording crackled for a moment. I could hear her breathing, shaky, almost frantic. She sounded like she was about to cry. "I never meant for you to find out like this. He was there when you weren't. You were always working, always tired, and She broke off, and there was a long, ragged silence. Then she whispered the words I'd been dreading. "I'm sorry." That was it. The entire performance. A half-hearted apology she probably rehearsed to make herself feel better. But she didn't say it wasn't true. She didn't deny the affair. She didn't even try to pretend it hadn't happened. My chest constricted, so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the arm of the couch, gripping it like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the ground. I replayed the message 3 times just to be sure. Each time, her voice sounded smaller, hollower, like the echo of someone I used to know. All those nights, she'd come home late, saying she was helping a friend. All the times she'd picked fights over nothing, accusing me of being distant, cold, uncaring. All the times she'd told me I was the problem. It was all a distraction. A smokescreen to cover what she was really doing. Blame me for everything so she could justify betraying me. I felt something shift inside me. Something permanent. Like a door had slammed shut. I couldn't call her back. I couldn't even bring myself to look at the photos of us on the bookshelf. My hands were trembling, and when I finally managed to stand, I felt an almost surreal calm settle over me. The way you feel just before a storm hits. I knew I needed proof, something that went beyond a voicemail. My friends had tried to warn me, but I defended her over and over, too proud to admit that the person I loved might be lying to my face. Now, I couldn't afford denial. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I opened her laptop. I almost hoped I wouldn't find anything. That maybe, somehow, this was all a mistake. But within minutes, I was staring at the chain of emails she thought she deleted. Messages she'd sent him late at night while I slept in the next room. I wish he'd just leave me so I don't have to be the bad guy. He doesn't get me. You do. Don't worry, he'll never find out. Those words burned into my memory. They were worse than any fight we'd ever had. Worse than all the times she'd accused me of neglect. They were her true thoughts, laid bare. I scrolled further, past the photos she'd attached, smiling selfies in hotel rooms I'd never seen, snapshots of dinners I never shared with her. And as the evidence mounted, the part of me that still wanted to believe in her began to die. When I finally closed the laptop, the apartment felt alien, like I was standing in someone else's life. Every piece of furniture, every decoration we'd picked out together, felt like a monument to a lie. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat by the window, staring out at the city. My mind kept replaying every moment I'd ignored, every red flag I'd smoothed over with excuses. The way she'd always found a way to twist things, so I felt guilty. So I'd apologize when I'd done nothing wrong. It was almost dawn when I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her in some dramatic shouting match. I wasn't going to let her spin another story or offer another hollow apology. I was done letting her control the narrative. I was going to let her face the consequences of her choices, without me to catch her when she fell. The next day, she tried to call. Over and over, her number lit up my phone, but I didn't answer. I didn't trust myself to hear her voice. Part of me was still too raw, too close to breaking. So I let every call go to voicemail. When I came home from work, she was waiting outside my door, her suitcase propped against the wall. She looked up at me with eyes red from crying, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the emails, the lies, the months of gaslighting and manipulation. "Can we talk?" she asked hoarsely. I didn't move. I didn't open the door. "There's nothing left to say." She started to protest, but her voice cracked. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, mascara streaking her skin. For the first time in years, she looked completely powerless. And I realized how much power she'd held over me. How I'd let her define my worth, convince me I wasn't enough. But that was over now. I turned and walked away, leaving her in the hallway with nothing but her regret. It was the moment I stopped being the victim of her choices. It was the moment I began reclaiming my life. But as I closed the door behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that there was still something she hadn't told me. Some final secret waiting to shatter what was left of my peace. And deep down, I knew that the real reckoning was yet to come. The day I had imagined 100 times finally arrived. I waited for her outside the courthouse, the same place she had tried to ruin me, her lies echoing in the marble halls. She walked toward me slowly, her shoulders hunched under a coat that looked 2 sizes too big. It struck me how quickly her confidence had withered. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I didn't move, didn't nod, didn't even blink. I wanted her to feel the cold distance she'd once inflicted on me when she accused me of everything she'd done herself. She took another step, her eyes glossy, searching for any softness in me. I never meant for it to end this way. I didn't think it would get so bad. Didn't think what? I asked, my tone stripped of every ounce of affection. That the truth would crawl out eventually? Her face crumpled. She started to say something, then pressed her lips together, as if afraid her own words might destroy whatever was left. I almost laughed. All those months when she played the perfect victim, when her tears convinced my friends I was the monster, when she lied to my family, those memories pressed against my chest until it felt like I couldn't breathe. She took a shaky breath. I lost everything. The apartment, my job. I'm staying at a shelter now. There it was. The confession she'd never wanted to give me. For a moment, I thought I might feel sorry for her, but the sympathy never came. "You blamed me for your affair," I said, my voice low. "You told everyone I was abusive. You made me feel like I was the one who broke us." Her tears spilled over. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm sorry. I let the silence hang between us until it grew unbearable. My heart beat so hard I thought she could hear it. I believed you, I said finally. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. I believed every word you said about me. I thought I really was unlovable. She reached out as if to touch my arm, and I stepped back. The rejection made her flinch. I don't know who I was back then, she whispered. I was scared. I thought you were going to leave me, and I couldn't. So you destroyed me first? My laugh was bitter. That's the story you're telling yourself now. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, mascara smudging like bruises. I deserve this. I deserve all of it. For a fraction of a second, I thought about how we used to be. How we had once planned a life together. But those memories felt like they belonged to strangers. I'm not here to punish you, I said quietly. You did that all on your own. Her mouth trembled. I'm sorry, she said again, the words sounding smaller each time. I shook my head. I don't need your apology. She stared at me, her eyes wide, as if she had expected me to say something else, something that would let her believe she still mattered to me. But she didn't. Not anymore. And when I turned to leave, I didn't look back. Just as I reached my car, I felt her gaze drilling into my spine. When I finally glanced over my shoulder, she was still standing there, alone, in the winter wind, like a ghost watching a life she could never reclaim. The weeks after the confrontation were a blur of conflicting emotions. On some days, I felt nothing but grim satisfaction, as if the universe had finally balanced an unpayable debt. Other days, I caught myself replaying every moment. The nights she came home late, the way she looked at me with hollow eyes, the casual cruelty of her final accusations. People say time heals everything. I disagree. Time doesn't heal. It merely teaches you to compartmentalize. I woke up every morning with the same ache in my chest, like a phantom limb, the space she used to occupy. But it was a cleaner pain now, no longer tainted with self-blame. Her family tried to reach me, though they never said the words directly. They danced around it, hinting that she was living out of her car, that she had burned through every ounce of goodwill she had left. They wanted me to feel guilt, to believe I was somehow responsible for her collapse. But every time the guilt tried to take root, I remembered her smirk when she told me she'd already called the police. I remembered the way she twisted the truth so effortlessly, so convincingly, that for a moment, I doubted my own sanity. That was the worst part, how easily she'd convinced me that her betrayal was my fault. I changed the locks the day after she left. I boxed up what little she'd left behind, her perfume bottles, her broken necklaces, a stack of unopened mail, and had it all dropped at her sister's house. For the first time in years, the place felt like mine. The air didn't vibrate with tension anymore. Still, every so often, I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced she was standing outside the front door, waiting for me to open it. I'd get up, heart hammering, and pull the curtain aside to see nothing but the dark silhouette of the empty street. I thought I was done with her. I thought I had reclaimed my life, piece by piece. Until the afternoon, I came home from work and found a note wedged into the doorframe. The handwriting was unmistakable, thin, slanting letters, like she was always in a hurry. I'm sorry. Just 2 words. No explanation. No plea for forgiveness. I crumpled the paper in my fist and threw it away, but the message lodged itself under my skin. It haunted me more than any of her lies had. Because that was the moment I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. She wasn't the only one who had been broken. Her downfall hadn't brought me the closure I thought it would. It was a hollow victory. There was no triumph in watching someone you once loved unravel completely, no matter what they'd done. But there was no saving her either. She had chosen this path. She'd carved it out with every deceit, every selfish decision. A week later, I saw her. She was sitting on a bench near the old coffee shop we used to go to on Sunday mornings. Her hair was matted, her clothes wrinkled, a duffel bag at her feet. She looked up as I passed. Her eyes met mine, but there was no recognition, no resentment, just an emptiness I couldn't interpret. In that split second, I thought she might say something, that she might try to blame me again. Instead, she looked right through me. I kept walking. But as I turned the corner, I knew this wasn't over. Not really. Because some betrayals don't end with a single confrontation. Some linger, like a splinter buried too deep to dig out. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed our entire story. The early months when she made me feel invincible. The day I first suspected the truth. The moment she screamed that it was all my fault. The weeks that followed, when my life turned into a cautionary tale. I thought about the version of her I fell in love with, before the lies, before the manipulation. And for a heartbeat, I almost missed that illusion. But illusions don't pay rent. I'd survived her. I'd survived the wreckage she left behind. And yet, in the quiet darkness of my room, I couldn't shake the sense that this was only the beginning. Because once you learn how easily trust can shatter, you never look at anyone the same way again. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, jolting me back to the present. A single message illuminated the screen.
Please, just talk to me.
Her number. I didn't reply. But as I set the phone face down, I felt a chill crawl across my skin. Because part of me knew, no matter how far she fell, she would always find a way to claw herself back into my life. And in that moment, I realized her greatest weapon wasn't her lies. It was the part of me that still remembered how it felt to love her.